With all due respect, that's a bunch of malarkey. This is a bunch of stuff, deal.
What does that mean, a bunch of stuff?
Well, it means it's simply inaccurate.
It's Irish.
It's Irish. It is. We Irish call it malarkey.
Thanks for the translation.
No,
Okay.
We Irish call it malarkey.
You know what this is? Yeah, and I reserve this word for those rare instances when it's truly deserved. This is malarkey.
That's a bunch of malarkey.
Direct from the King Spring Studios in beautiful Smyrna, Georgia. This is a bunch of malarkey. Now, here's your host, the incredible Charlie McMahon.
Thank you to the legendary Scott Shannon for our weekly introduction, and thanks to all of you for tuning in to yet another episode of A Bunch of Malarkey as we navigate through the first week and into the second week of the month of May, if you could believe that. I feel like it was March 1st, and now it's almost mid-May, and we'll never get that time back, so I'm just accepting that this is the new normal for now. Unlike a lot of people out there who can't accept that things are just a little bit different right now. Now, other than, I get my groceries. I've told you guys this a bunch of times. I get my groceries through Amazon Fresh, so I haven't had to go to the grocery store in a few months. I was doing Amazon Fresh before this whole pandemic hit, and they've been pretty good for the most part, but, they're out of stock on certain things. And for a long while there, you couldn't get a delivery slot without sitting on your computer and refreshing it like you were trying to get concert tickets on Ticketmaster. But they've gotten better. I don't know if they've hired more people or more people are venturing out to the store. So the strain on the Amazon Fresh system isn't as bad. So I haven't had to go to the store. The only two outings I've had up until this week were my wife had to take her car to get emissions inspected for the year for her registration. So I followed her to the emission stations where we dropped the car off. She had the emissions test done, and then I drove her back there to pick it up. So no interaction with people. And then a couple of weeks ago, I took her to the auto shop. She needed new ball joints on her Jeep. So again, followed her down to the service station, brought her home, and then brought her back to pick up the car. So that was the only two outings, and that was right up the corner from my house. So for 2 months, I had no idea what was going on out there. So here in Georgia, the state, we were one of the first states to quote-unquote reopen with a lot of foolish things. Bowling alleys, hairdressers, restaurants are now opening. It's crazy, okay? It's a little too soon, but whatever. I'm not going to get into the whole politics of it. You know where I stand. So last Saturday, I have two lawnmowers, okay? I have a lawnmower for the front yard, and I have a lawnmower for the backyard. And the reason I have two lawnmowers is because the only way in from the front to the back is down like this kind of a hill, and I've got a rock path with like these nice stepping stones, so it's almost impossible to wheel a lawnmower from the front yard into the back. So that's why I have two separate lawnmowers. And the lawnmower I had in my backyard was a lawnmower I purchased secondhand from one of my neighbors who moved about 8 years ago. So he had it for 2 years. I had it for 8. It was 10 years old. And the front of it just rotted out for some reason. I was pushing it last week, and it was like metal fatigue. The front just fell apart, and the blade started digging into the grass. It was a whole disaster. So I needed a new lawnmower. But I didn't want to go to a store. And I didn't feel comfortable ordering a lawnmower from Amazon where it was going to get bounced around in a UPS truck, and it would probably come here in 50 pieces. So I decided to go on Home Depot's website, order the lawnmower, and then do a store pickup curbside where after you order it, they process it. I guess people go around and do the shopping for people, stage it at the customer service desk, and then they notify you by text and email when your order is ready for pickup. You drive down to the store, you park in a designated parking spot, and you'd call the number that they have posted, and they bring out the product to you. Well, I went there on midweek, I don't know, Tuesday or Wednesday, middle of the day. It was a shit show down there, folks. People walking around. First of all, Home Depot was mobbed in the middle of a weekday. So that shows you the unemployment rate is way up. People are home. People aren't doing anything. People are walking around. I would say it's 50-50, mask and no mask. Now, I wasn't even going in the store, and I wore a mask. And, because I knew I would probably come into contact with the employee when they came out with the lawnmower. I opened the lift gate in the back for them and helped them put it in. But here I am wearing a mask, and I'm not even going in the store. Now, they were only letting a certain amount of people into the store at one time. So people were lined up, wrapped around the building, half of them not wearing masks, people shopping for house plants. They have the outdoor gardens. Like, nothing's happening out there. So for some people, they're taking it seriously. Other people are just pretending like it's normal, whatever normal is now, because I don't know what normal is. But there's still people out there refusing to accept that things aren't going to be normal anytime soon, that there's still going to be restrictions, even in states like mine where they were foolish enough to open things early. There are still restrictions in place. Now, I don't know what normal is going to be from this point on, if there's ever going to be a normal, if there's going to be a new normal. I have no idea. Nobody knows, okay? But there are still people defiant out there that just can't accept in their small minds that things aren't back to normal or probably going to be normal for any period of time. Take, for instance, this incident in Oklahoma City. Police say 2 Oklahoma City women shot 2 McDonald's employees Wednesday night after being told the restaurant's dining area was closed. The suspects got angry and took out a gun when they were asked to leave due to coronavirus restrictions that were in place at the restaurant. The employees, who were both 16-year-old kids, 2 boys, were shot in the arm, and their injuries are not life-threatening. A third employee, a woman, fell and injured her head in the chaos, but was not shot. The 2 suspects fled and were apprehended nearby. The incident is one of a multitude of protests from residents across the country responding to restrictions in place to combat the virus. The injured employees were all transported to a local hospital. Businesses in Oklahoma have been allowed to reopen following the state's coronavirus lockdown, but this particular McDonald's in southwest Oklahoma City has stuck to the takeout and delivery orders only, which enraged the shooters. So now you're pissed off that things aren't back to normal, so now we're going to resort to shooting people because we can't sit in McDonald's. What the fuck is going on out there? I mean, you don't hear of this stuff happening in any other country. Italy was on lockdown, really strict. They would beat the shit out of you if they caught you on the street. All these other countries, they did what they had to do. They got over the virus, and now they're slowly getting back to normal. We are never going to get back to normal if we keep doing stupid shit like this. Just reckless. But that's not all. And the catchphrase of 2020 is an old one from an infomercial. But wait, there's more. Now, masks and face coverings are recommended, even required, in many U.S. supermarkets now. But a customer at a Southern California grocery store chose to wear what appeared to be a Ku Klux Klan hood throughout his shopping trip and ignored requests from staff to remove it, according to the supermarket chain. The San Diego County Sheriff's Department is looking into the incident and could pursue criminal charges. The customer was photographed by shoppers at Vons grocery store in Santee last weekend. An image of the person bagging fruit in the produce department while wearing the KKK hood, face fully covered except for 2 holes around the eyes, was shared by San Diego's Anti-Defamation League Regional Director Tammy Gillies. Vons said employees had asked the customer to remove the hood, but the customer ignored the request until they made it to the checkout area. This was a disturbing incident for our associates and customers, and we are reviewing with our team how best to handle such an inappropriate situation in the future, Vons Supermarket said in a statement. It's not clear whether the customer was allowed to check out with the groceries or eventually removed the hood. The San Diego County Sheriff's Department said deputies were not called to the store at the time of the incident, but detectives are looking into the matter and will pursue criminal charges if necessary, the department said in a statement. Customer Elisa Wenzel said she spotted the shopper, whom she believed was a man, as soon as she entered the store. He was waiting in the checkout line, she said, wearing the KKK hood. At first, she didn't believe what she was seeing. Wenzel then moved between aisles to sneak photos of him and keep her distance. Management should be doing something, but I didn't see anyone talking to him, she said. He was just standing in line. By the time she'd finished her shopping at the self-checkout lane, some 30 minutes later, the man was in line waiting for a cashier, still wearing his KKK hood. I just remember feeling so heartbroken, so hopeless, and then also just really upset that this would happen in the community that I raised my family in. It was just utter shock and disbelief, and I still feel that way. So, people shooting, saying, okay, if you're going to make me wear a mask, I'm going to wear a KKK mask. But wait, there's more. A man accused of shoving an Austin, Texas park ranger into the water while the ranger was explaining to a crowd the need for social distancing is embarrassed by his actions, his attorney said. A video that gained national attention after it was posted on social media includes the moment a young man pushes the park ranger into a lake at Commons Ford Ranch Metro Park last Thursday. Brandon Hicks, he's 25, he's facing charges of attempted assault on a public servant, a state jail felony, said the Travis County Sheriff's Office. According to an arrest affidavit, Ranger Cassidy Stillwell was talking to a crowd of people, described as unlawfully drinking and smoking on a dock near Lake Austin. It's unclear from the affidavit whether Hicks was part of that group mentioned in the affidavit. Amid the crosstalk in the video, Stillwell is heard telling the crowd on the dock to disperse in the grassy area nearby because they were not maintaining physical distance of 6 feet. Some respond with, "Will do," and "I got you, man." The ranger's instructions are interrupted when the man pushes him into the shallow, murky water. The ranger holds onto the man's arm and pulls him in, the video shows. The man, clad in a swimsuit, scrambles out of the water and runs away. Attorney Mark Hull said in a statement that he looks forward to telling Hicks' side of the story. What the fuck is his side of the story? Do you see the video? This guy just pushed this park ranger into the water. What's his story? He is embarrassed about his actions and has the utmost respect for law enforcement, particularly during these unprecedented times, his lawyer Hull said. An eyewitness who shot the video said that park visitors were closer to each other than they should have been. The ranger was just telling us to spread apart, to keep our distance, and honestly was being super reasonable and understanding, said the witness, who did not want to be identified. The officer who submitted the affidavit said the ranger could have struck his head on the dock as he was falling and render himself unconscious in at least 3 feet of water where he could have drowned. Kimberly McNeely, Director of Parks and Recreation for Austin, said public support is essential for employees to meet the challenges of this pandemic. We ask that the public treat rangers with the same respect they wish to be shown to themselves, she said. Hull, the attorney, says his client is out on $7,500 bond and his next court date is in June on the 19th. He said it was too early in the case to determine how Hicks will plea. A person found guilty of a state jail felony faces a sentence of 180 days to 2 years in jail. So, again, it's just chaos out there. People being asked to do basic little things, and they feel they're right to being taken away. I can't get a haircut. I can't get a taco. I can't. Grow the fuck up, people. I mean, really. But wait, there's more. A Family Dollar store security guard was killed in Flint, Michigan on Friday after being shot when telling a customer that her child had to wear a face mask to enter the store, the county prosecutor's office said on Monday. The argument began when the security guard named Calvin Munnerlin, 43 years old, told Charmel Lash Teague, a 45-year-old woman, that customers needed to wear face masks in the Dollar Tree store. Genesee County Prosecutor David Layton said in a news conference on Monday. She yelled back at him, spit on him, and drove off. About 20 minutes later, her car returned to the store. Her husband, Larry Edward Teague, 44, and her son, Ramonia Trevon Bishop, 23, stepped out and confronted the security guard. Bishop pulled out a gun and shot Munnerlyn, Layton said. Layton said Munnerlyn was just doing his job, protecting others and enforcing a statewide executive order. In Michigan, people are required to wear face coverings in grocery stores. Stores can refuse service to anyone who is not wearing a mask. We simply can't devolve into an us versus them mentality, he said. We need to make a commitment as a community to do the things necessary to allow us to stay healthy and turn a page on this crisis together. Not for ourselves, but for Calvin Munnerlyn, who lost his life needlessly and senselessly. The shooting is the latest blow in an ensuing battle between government mandates that encourage or require face masks in public spaces to prevent the spread of the coronavirus and people who resist the guidelines due to inconvenience or concerns of overreach by officials. People are making threats. People are showing up with guns at state capitals because they have to wear a fucking mask. What is going on? It's totally crazy. People are just acting out. For a while there, the only mutants we had were people coughing on police and saying, oh, you got the corona now, you want some lime. But now it's getting bad. People are starting to come out. People are defiant. They were locked up like they feel like they were caged animals. They were animals to begin with, but now they're coming out like savages that were caged, and it's getting bad out there. But wait, there's more. A South Carolina woman was arrested after she coughed and licked her hands before touching several food items at a grocery store on Saturday, authorities said. Store surveillance shows Shanier Gibson Holiday, 38 years old, coughing and licking her hands before pulling on a freezer door and touching items throughout the store. Holiday was arrested and charged with aggravated breach of peace and food tampering. She was also cited for violating the state's home or work order, police said. She was in jail on a $100,000 bond. On Monday, she was charged after a similar incident at a sandwich shop. In that instance, Holiday ordered a sandwich, a drink, and some chips, then licked her fingers before handing the clerk money for her order. She also licked quarters before placing them in the tip jar just before running out of the restaurant as she yelled, "It's in God's hands now." Can you believe this stuff? Licking quarters, putting them in a tip jar, purposely licking and coughing, and I don't understand this. It's just, we are never going to get over this. Every other country, civilized. Okay, you want us to wear a mask? Okay, you want us to do this? Okay. It's not giving up rights. It's just doing something so something passes fast so we can all get back to some sense of normalcy. But small-minded people don't get that. And it's frustrating me. But wait. There's more. We got a fake nurse story. Women dressed as healthcare workers are taking packages from outside residents' homes in Washington state, according to the Kennewick Police Department. 2 women, described by police as suspects in porch piracy cases, are seen in surveillance videos wearing scrubs and what appears to be a lanyard with an ID badge. One wears gloves as she takes a package off the front porch of a home. Kennewick Police Department said they don't believe these women are real nurses. The nurses, we are fortunate to know, only give their time, lives, and take the vitals of their patients, not their property, police said on Facebook. One package stolen Wednesday was taken from the home of an actual nurse and a law enforcement officer. We have a home security system, so I pulled up the videos, Michelle Santiago said, who was out working at the time of the delivery. I could see the FedEx driver drop the package off around 3 o'clock that afternoon in one video, and in a following video, this woman walks up and takes it in less than 5 minutes. Inside the package was a customized organizer for her husband's police equipment. Santiago shared the video with her neighborhood group and found other instances of this happening. Even if we had been home, I don't know if I would have gotten out there fast enough to get the package, said Santiago. She literally grabbed the package minutes after it was dropped off. Police shared the images on Saturday, hoping the community can help identify these fake nurses. Now people dressing up as nurses. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. It's just getting so bad out there. And it's only going to get worse. You know, people are just like savages. And again, everybody said, well, not everybody, certain people said, what a great economy we had. If it's all about money and getting back to work, everybody said what a great economy we had. It's the best economy we've ever had. Yet when people miss 2 paychecks, they're destitute, angry, gun-toting. Come on, if it was that good of an economy, people would have money saved and wouldn't be in debt and wouldn't be destitute after missing 2 paychecks. So I call bullshit on the greatest economy the world has ever seen. If it was the greatest economy the world has ever seen, people wouldn't be in debt. People wouldn't be ready to live on the street after missing a couple of paychecks. I'm sorry. So saying all people are angry because their livelihood is being affected as an excuse, yeah, I understand if people are unable to save, if they're living paycheck to paycheck, but it's no reason to act out, steal, shoot people, and be defiant about wearing a mask, and it's nonsense, and put other people's lives in danger. What good is that money you're going to make? First of all, if you open your business, you got to hope that people are coming. The vast majority of people aren't ready to go back to restaurants and barbershops and hair salons. So you got to weigh as a business owner, okay, you're able to open your doors. You're going to be paying your utilities and your employees. And is anybody going to come? You got to look at that side of the coin. So a lot of mutants there, but they're not even the tip of the iceberg when it comes to mutants. And that'll segue perfectly to our favorite segment.
A bunch of malarkey.
Mutant of the Week.
Now here's Charlie.
So last week, in a very decisive victory, the positive protester, the woman who started a North Carolina Facebook page to reopen North Carolina and then was diagnosed with coronavirus, she beat the supermarket spreader, a woman with an ankle monitor, not allowed, under quarantine, not allowed out, found in a Kroger store, spreading the disease. The positive protester is our Mutant of the Week in a 73 to 27% margin. So the positive protester is our Mutant of the Week and will wear the crown until one of these nominees take it from her this week. Where do you vote for the Mutant of the Week? Well, that's easy. You go to our Facebook page, A Bunch of Malarkey. The poll goes up midday on Monday, ends Saturday morning or early Saturday afternoon. You got like 5.5 days to vote. So make your voices heard, share the poll, let everybody know all about the Mutant of the Week poll here on A Bunch of Malarkey. Let's get into this week's nominees. We got to go to Holly, Michigan, where police have arrested a 68-year-old man on assault charges after he entered a Dollar Tree, another Dollar Tree, on Saturday and wiped his face on an employee's shirt. Oh, this is great. Holly Police Chief Jerry Narsh said the man entered the store about 1:30 p.m. Saturday without a mask, despite an executive order in the state requiring patrons in enclosed public spaces to wear one at all times. Rex Howard Gornall of Linden faces misdemeanor charges of assault and battery of Jessica Cooper. Security camera footage inside the store released by police shows a man wiping his face on an employee's shirt. According to police, the employee had told the man he needed to wear a mask to remain in the store. He responded by saying, quote, "Here, I'll just use this as a mask," end quote, before wiping his nose and face on the shirt, leaving behind bodily fluids, Narsh said. The employee was the only person the man came in contact with while at the Dollar Tree, Narsh said, who also said the man made other comments and was loud and disruptive until leaving. In a statement, Randy Geiler, president of investor relations at Dollar Tree, said, "We are appreciative of the work and of the Holly Police Department in seeing this man's irresponsible and unacceptable behavior toward our associate was addressed promptly." So let's call him the Dollar Tree dickhead, the guy who walked in without a mask and got mad because an employee told him he needed to wear a mask and then wiped his nose on her shirt. So the Dollar Tree dickhead out of Michigan is our first mutant nominee. Our second mutant nominee, we got to go down to Kentucky, where a Kentucky woman was caught on video shopping with a hole cut in the middle of her protective face mask, which she claimed made it easier to breathe. The Kentucky woman apparently found it difficult to breathe with the protective mask she was wearing amid the COVID-19 pandemic, so she did what she believed was the only logical thing, which was to cut a hole in the middle of it. A gas station clerk at the SJ Food Mart, Lexington, saw the woman entering the store with the torn mask and caught her on video. "Where did you get that mask from?" he asked the woman as she approaches the counter to pay for her gas. "Well, since we have to wear them and it makes it hard to breathe, I cut a hole in it to make it easier to breathe," she replies. "Cutting it?" he asked. "Yeah, I'll do that too. Thanks for the advice," sarcastically he says back. The woman then leaves the store. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention advises that masks should cover the mouth and nose completely. Otherwise, it simply doesn't work. Kentucky's number of COVID-19 cases is at least 5,822 as of Wednesday, after rising by 275 as of Tuesday, according to Johns Hopkins University. So let's call her My Kentucky Hole. Remember that song? You know that song, My Kentucky Home? It's like the theme song of Kentucky. They play it at the Kentucky Derby. So we got My Kentucky Hole against the Dollar Tree Dickhead. So make your voices heard. Poll goes up on Monday, ends on Saturday. Be sure to tell all your friends and family about A Bunch of Malarkey. And thanks again for the 22 consecutive months of increased listenership. We had another great week last week. A lot of feedback about the crazy house I grew up in of everything falling apart. Got some messages and emails. So thank you guys very much. People said you really had an interesting childhood. See, without that, you wouldn't have all these stories. Yeah, I like to have a story or two, but I just wish the whole childhood wasn't dysfunctional. A nice story to tell or two, but I wish I had... I didn't want my whole childhood to be like that. So spring is in the air, okay? We are in May now. Most of the country, warmer weathers. Although there is some crazy snowstorm cold front hitting the Northeast over the weekend. They're calling it like a Mother's Day snowstorm or something, which is odd. But for the most part, spring is in the air. And if a classic euphemism is to be believed, that means birds and the bees have begun their time-honored practice of nonstop sex, or something like that. So the expression, the birds and the bees, we've all heard it. Let me tell you about the birds and the bees. There have been songs written about it. Birds and the bees meaning sex, the facts of life, the birds and the bees. The phrase, the birds and the bees, is hazy by design. It's used to tell children about the mechanics of human sex without actually mentioning sex or even human beings. It's prudish poetry that has somehow endured throughout the years, but its origins, like its definition, aren't entirely clear. The term is thought to have two possible origins. Samuel Taylor Coleridge is credited with referring to the two species in the context of love in his 1825 collection, Work Without Hope. All nature seems to work. The bees are stirring, birds are on the wing, and I the while, the sole unbusy thing, not honey make, nor pair, nor build, nor sing. Unfortunately for Coleridge, this fleeting passage had a lasting legacy, and his jealousy at local birds and bees for getting more action than him has been etched into eternity. USC professor Ed Finnegan found an earlier use of the phrase in the diary of John Evelyn, published in 1644. That stupendous canopy of Corinthian brass, it consists of 4 wreathed columns encircled with vines on which hang little pooty cherubs, birds, and bees. Finnegan theorizes that Romantic-era poets were inspired by this passage's placement of birds and bees so close to cherubs, which represent the sexuality of humans. The earliest use of the term found in the New York Times archives that could conceivably be in the modern context of sex is from a Civil War correspondence from Washington, D.C., published a little over a week after the start of the conflict in 1861. It is a warm, sunny day, this 20th day of April, The air is redolent of bursting buds, and the Capitol Park is jubilant with the gushing songs of the birds and the humming of the honeybees. The northern air that has aggressed upon us for a week past, has been driven back by the rebellious south wind that comes fresh from the fair faces it has caressed, and the waving tresses through which it has wantoned, to enchant the soul with its balmy breath and entrance the mind with its dreamy sweetness. The author certainly doesn't shy from wordplay, aggressed, which leads us to believe that euphemistic speaking is a possibility. On the bright side, the convoluted origins of the birds and the bees may inspire you to skip the phrase altogether next time you're asked, where do babies come from? At some point, the birds and the bees made their way into songs, 62 of them to be exact, ushering the phrase securely into popular culture. Now, that's what this topic's all about. Where did you learn about the birds and the bees? Now, I put up a poll, which I can't believe the results of this. 100% of you said you learned about the birds and the bees, the facts of life, or, to put it bluntly, sex, from another source other than your parents, that they didn't give you the talk, you found out some other way. And I join you on that, but I'll get into how I found out in just a little bit. Nationwide, 30% of teens report that their parents have never spoken with them about sex, although 70% have. I think that's a pretty good number, 70-30, for this day and age. I think back in the day, more parents shied away from it. I think parents are more open now. I would say it was probably the opposite. When I was growing up, a Gen Xer in the late 70s, early 80s, we probably had 30% of parents talking about sex and 70% weren't. But that's just a guess. That's not, I don't want to put out fake news. But right now, 70% of parents are talking to their teens about sex. But what makes this number concerning is that recent data indicates that 40% of high school students have had sexual intercourse and 10% have had sex with 4 or more people. This reality makes it important for parents to understand teen sex trends and to initiate conversations to help their kids understand the consequences of being sexually active at such a young age. According for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's most recently released Youth Risk Behavior Survey, which is conducted every other year with high school students across the nation, 39.5% of high school students reported having had sexual intercourse, with the prevalence being higher among males, about 41%, and females, 38%. 30% had sex in the 3 months prior to the study, with 46% of those students not using a condom. What's more disturbing is that, according to another CDC report, about half of the 20 million new STD infections reported each year were among people between the ages of 15 to 24. According to the YRBS, the prevalence of young people reporting that they've had sexual intercourse in their lives is as follows. 3% of kids 13 years or younger, 20% of high school freshmen, 36% of sophomores, 47% of juniors, and 57% of high school seniors have had sex. Across all ages, the prevalence of having sex was higher among kids who reported that they are heterosexual, 39%, or gay, lesbian, and bisexual, 48%, than for students who were unsure about their sexual identity, 28%. And since most experts would say adolescence doesn't end until the mid-20s, if you're a parent with a kid heading off to college, you may want to, or you may not want to, but you should, check out College Stats survey on trends in college student sexual behavior and which campuses, as reported by students, had the most sexual activity. Research on teen sex trends isn't all gloom and doom. In fact, from 1991 to 2017, there has been a significant decrease in the number of adolescents who report having sexual intercourse, 54% down to 39.5%. Although the big picture is promising, The number of teens having sex in 2017, the latest study, 39.5%, hasn't changed much since 2015, which was at 41%. With over a third of the nation's youth reporting being sexually active, there is a great concern that they are placing themselves at risk for pregnancy, sexually transmitted infections, and HIV. So where do we go from here? Here's what parents can do to guide their adolescents. Talk through the awkwardness. Studies have shown that teens who are well-informed aren't in a hurry to have sex. Although speaking with your teen about sex can feel awkward at first, the more you do it, the more natural it will become. Break the ice by using real stories. If you hear something on the news or read something online about sex that you feel is relevant, bring it up with your teen. It's easier to talk about an external situation than what's going on internally. The more kids talk about sexual topics, the less challenging it will be to discuss their own situations. If you need help starting a conversation with your kid, check out sextc.org, a website run by teens that's affiliated with Rutgers University. Let the talk come from you, not the internet. Young people are naturally curious about sex, so if you don't give them the information they need, they'll seek it out on their own or via social media or internet sites, which may not be reliable sources. Use your influential power to your advantage. The positive impact of parents communicating with their teens about romantic relationships, sex, sexually transmitted diseases, and pregnancy prevention has been widely supported in research. Responding to surveys conducted by the National Campaign to Prevent Teen and Unplanned Pregnancy, teens report that their parents have had the greatest influence over their decisions about sex. Parents ranked higher than friends, siblings, or the media. The majority of teens say they have similar values to their parents when it comes to sex, and they would like to be able to speak openly and honestly about the topic with their parents. Be real, be authentic, and be straightforward. Teens have really good BS meters, and they'll know if you're just trying to rush through the talk because you're uncomfortable. They'll also know if they can rely on you for information. A good tip is to lighten the mood. Don't be overly serious when talking about sex, body functions, protection, and risks such as pregnancy, sexually transmitted disease, etc. It's okay to use humor, or if you have a story to illustrate your point, that's even better. You don't have to share your own personal experiences if you don't want to. Odds are your kids don't want to hear about those either. When you speak with your kids about sex, be upfront and honest. Try to give them truthful information, and then crack a joke to lighten the mood. Talk about more than just sex. Teens want to discuss more than sex. According to a report from Harvard's Making Caring Common project, 70% of 18 to 25-year-olds said they wish they had received more information from their parents about how to manage their feelings and emotions in a relationship. More than a third reported they wanted more guidance on how to have a mature relationship, handle breakups, and how not to get hurt in a relationship. They also wanted to know how to compromise in a relationship when you're both stubborn, deal with falling out of love situations, wait to have sex, and deal with cheating. Those topics in addition to sex. For teen, it's about more than sex. It's about how to have a meaningful relationship. Don't sex shame. Instead, teach that sex is a beautiful act of connecting because it's a time when there is a connection with another person. It's okay to wait until they find that special person they could share that deep emotional bond with before having sex. And per the data, many teens are waiting to have sex. What teens want is to be cared for and loved, and what they need is our guidance in knowing what that looks like in a relationship. Parents play a crucial role in changing teen sex trends. It's worrisome when a third of the nation's youth report that their parents have never spoken with them about sex. Why not? Plus, how cool is it when teens put on a survey that they need their parents' guidance in understanding relationships, how to have meaningful relationships for themselves? There's just no way around it. You owe it to your kids to have these needed conversations. The discussion about sex needs to start at home. Now, like I said, things were very different back in the late 70s and the 80s and probably into the early 90s. So what better person to have on the air? I immediately thought of her because I wanted a woman's perspective as well. So I'm going to share my finding out of the birds and the bees, and you love her. She's a bunch of malarkey fan favorite, can I say? Listener favorite. It's Jen, of course, who's been on the show 6 or 7 times. And I got a chance to talk to her by phone, of course, because we're still distancing earlier in the week. So here's my conversation with Jen about the birds and the bees, how I found out about them, how she found out about them. Of course, it's going to be quite humorous, as always. So enjoy the call with Jen, and I'll catch you on the other side. She is a fan favorite, or a listener favorite, however you want to put it. She's making her 7th appearance here on A Bunch of Malarkey, and her name is Jen, and you know her quite well. Jen from Atlanta. How you doing?
Hi, good. How are you? So 7 appearances, huh? Do I get a watch or something for that?
Your 8th appearance, you get a watch.
Okay.
And a roll of toilet paper.
Come on, number 8.
So the last time we spoke was just kind of like the first couple of weeks of this pandemic. How have things changed for you? Are you back to work? Are you back going out to stores? What's changed?
Nothing. Actually, I'm going out less because, it got to the point where my work slowed down to the point, it just slowed down, and I had to look at my husband and say, look, I'll stay home with the kid every day now, and you go to work. There's no sense in me, going to work for nothing. So actually, I'm at home more.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I was telling the listeners before this call that I had not been out of the house since March 1st, other than to drop my wife's car off at the local shop that needed an inspection. But the other day, my lawnmower died, and I needed a new lawnmower, so I ordered one from Home Depot online, and then I did the curbside pickup. What a shit show down there at the Home Depot. People walking around like there's nothing wrong, no masks. It was crazy.
Yeah. I get it. I go out to go shopping. I do it all 3 ways. Sometimes I go in person. Sometimes I have it delivered, and sometimes I just pick it up. And, everybody's just still struggling.
Yeah.
No, but nothing's smooth. Nobody's got it down pat. Even the people wearing masks, like, I'm shocked. Look at this woman next to me with a whole mask on her head and these gloves up to her elbows, and she's got the mask pulled down under her nose. And I watch her take her, like, after touching something from the shelf and put it back, but scratches her eyes with the gloves on. And I'm just like,
what's the point? Well, one of the Mutant of the Week nominees this week is a woman from Kentucky who cut a hole where her mouth is on the mask. I don't know if you saw that on the news.
No.
And said that she can breathe easier wearing the mask. She's still going to wear the mask, but now she can breathe easier wearing it.
Of course.
That she cut the hole in it.
Makes perfect sense.
So you're not venturing out. Neither am I. I'm going to wait. I'm not in any hurry.
I'm just trying not to. I mean, I'm in a tiny condo, so I'm going to be honest. We can't stay in here, the 3 of us, nonstop. So we go out for long walks. Jeff goes to the office. He can walk to our office. There's nobody else in there. He said it's literally every day him and one other guy, like 3 offices down, and that's it. And then I go to the grocery store sometimes. We try, either Jeff and I go, and we try to leave Celine at home. Right.
You haven't reached the level of The Shining yet, right? Where the 3...
It's come close. We have neared that edge a couple of times and have managed to back away. So
to be totally honest with you, Jen, other than missing a couple of pairs of our friends, I don't miss anything. I've been so busy with the radio station and doing stuff that the days are just flying by, and I don't miss it. I mean, the biggest thing I did over the last couple weeks is we actually ordered a pizza and got it delivered. We ventured that far to get takeout finally.
Wow, you guys are hardcore.
Yeah, we're hardcore.
Of course, I mean, you have a nice size living space where I think you and Jennifer could go to opposite ends of your house and not even know the other one is there, right?
We could, but we're always tripping over each other and getting on each other's nerves anyway. I don't know why.
Well, that's good, though. I mean, that means that you really, really like each other.
Oh, yeah.
I'd lock myself in my room by myself every day if I could.
Well, I'm always up in that attic broadcasting for the radio station, so...
Yeah, how's that go? I got a question for you about that. When you're up in the attic all day, doesn't it get really hot?
It does. I'm going to probably need some insulation up there. But yes, I'm isolated up there most of the day. I take a break for the bathroom, and my robot friend Kilroy takes over the controls.
How is Kilroy handling self sanitization?
He's
to make sure he doesn't give you the coronavirus.
He's not leaving the house either. I have him fully stocked on WD-40 and oil, so he doesn't have to go anywhere.
That's quite shocking. I've always known Kilroy to be a ladies' man. I figured he'd be out and about.
Well, I don't know if you were listening the other night, but the other morning, I think 2 mornings ago, at 9 a.m., a song repeated 2 times in a row on the radio station. There was like a glitch, and that was Kilroy's hour of duty on air. When I came into the studio at 10 a.m., he was passed out. It was the night after Cinco de Mayo. Rosie the robot from the Jetsons spent the night here. And it was just chaos. The attic was trashed. I mean, I had to write him up.
Bringing girls into the house.
I had to write him up. But she had a mask on. She was passed out with a mask on, Rosie.
What are you going to do?
So
We're all going a little crazy right now. Cut him a break.
So speaking of spending the night, that's a good segue with Kilroy and Rosie. The topic this week, as the listeners already know, are the birds and the bees. I explained where that expression came from and why we call it that. And I put up a poll on the Bunch of Malarkey Facebook page asking the listeners where they learned about the birds and the bees. Was it from their parents or was it from another source? And 100% of the people who responded said they learned from another source. So I said, this is a perfect topic to have Jen on from a female perspective and just a comedy perspective. So I haven't revealed to the audience yet how I found out. So we're going to talk back and forth about how we both learned about the birds and the bees. So I'm going to ask you first.
Wait.
Yeah.
Did you just say 100% of the responses were that people learned about?
Yeah, 100%.
Other than their parents?
Yeah, well, you're talking about our generation. Nowadays, I read it.
That's a shocking failure on the part of our parents.
Well,
shocking.
Well, I had just read before the call to the audience, 70% of parents now, of teenagers surveyed, say their parents have talked to them about sex. So it's gotten better.
Oh, that's much better, yes.
Yeah. When we were kids, we were just, it was latchkey, do it yourself. Nobody told us anything.
Yeah. About anything.
So before you actually found out about the birds and the bees, or we'll call it that, or sex, what rumors or rumblings, I love the word rumblings, did you hear about sex before you actually found out what it actually was? Like, what rumors?
One of you know how you have these moments in your life that you'll remember forever, no matter when they happened or how old you are.
Yes.
So one of my first memories like that, I will never forget about it. I was in 4th grade. I was in the bathroom, and a girl in my class who was also named Jennifer walked up to me at the sink and asked me if I was a virgin. And I had no idea what she was talking about. None.
Was this before or after the Madonna song?
Actually, it may have been. What year did that song come out?
Early 85.
85, so I would have been 10. It actually was right around that time.
Okay.
And to segue into to talk about that, my mother would not let that song be played on any radio in which she and I were within hearing distance. She would freak out if she heard it. What is this trash? Turn this off.
Like
You're
a
not
virgin.
listening to this. Yeah. So I remember coming home to my mother in 4th grade and crying because Jennifer asked me if I was a virgin. What's a virgin?
Wow. And then was it explained to you what a virgin was?
I have no memory of any response of my mother's. That must have been so traumatic that I blocked that out. But I remember being asked that question, and I remember being very upset.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know what sex was. But we used to watch soap operas. My mother was hooked on General Hospital, All My Children, One Life to Live, all the ABC soap operas. So when we got home from school, the soap operas were on. You know all these steamy things that are going on these daytime soap operas. And one time we were all watching General Hospital, and there was a couple on the show, was Monica and Alan, with the Quartermains. And Monica was having an affair with another guy named Rick, and she thought she was pregnant with Rick's baby. And I turned to my mom and said, well, how is she pregnant with Rick's baby if she's married to Alan? I thought only married people had babies. Mm-hmm. And I think my parents avoided that question altogether. So that was my first, curiosity. Well, if they're married, how is it the other guy's baby?
Yeah. I think I had that belief for a while, too.
So when did you actually, someone asked you about being a virgin and stuff. Are there any other, before you actually found out, we'll get to that, any other kind of rumors or rumblings you heard about sex until you actually found out out what it was, besides being asked if you were a virgin?
In sixth grade, a friend of mine was telling me about how she went to the movies with her boyfriend and they were making out.
Right.
We were in a group of friends. Like, it wasn't just me and her. We were in social studies class, actually. And she's telling us this, and I, in front of all of these people listening, say, "You made out at the movies? Where did you lie down?" And I was instantly like, they were all laughing at me. And my friend, her name is Kara. Well, this is another moment I will never forget, was like, "Dummy, there's a difference between making out and having sex, and you don't have to lay down to make out." And I was like, oh, that was a learning moment.
An aha moment.
Yes.
So what age and how did you find out about sex? Actually, what age were you and how did you find out?
Like, you mean like...
Not the first time you had sex. When was the first time you actually found out that,
the
like...
concept of sex?
Well, yeah, like the
that
penis goes in the
meant?
vagina and all that. Like, what sex actually was.
I don't know.
Like, did you read about it? Did you see it on a movie? Did you see it in a magazine? Did someone tell you?
I honestly think... I think the first time I ever knew what physically had to happen was when I was it was either late middle school or early high school. It had to have been middle school. And I was babysitting, and I had to go into the master bathroom to use the bathroom. And in the basket next to the toilet, the dad was a subscriber to Penthouse.
Okay.
So I opened up a Penthouse magazine, and this is forever burned in my mind. I saw the spread, and I was like,
well, was it just...
oh, my God.
Was it a picture of people having sex or just naked people?
No, they were...
They
were having sex.
In the magazine. And still photos.
Penthouse was very, very, I haven't seen it in a long time, I don't know, but back then, like Playboy was a little bit of muff and some boobs, and
right.
Penthouse was like cum shots, like full on nudity and pictures of actual intercourse. That was very shocking for me.
See, I found out by accident. I know you're gonna laugh at this, but I was in, I think, 4th grade. You know the cubbies in the classroom? Wait,
yeah.
The kids hang there. We were allowed to do research in the cubbies, at our desk, wherever. I was working on a project, and I was thumbing through the encyclopedia to look up something totally unrelated to sex. I didn't know what sex was. And I landed on a page about sexual intercourse. And they had a diagram of the penis, the vagina, and explicit details of what happens during sex, and I stood there stunned. I mean, I was looking up Franklin Delano Roosevelt or something, and I ended up with sexual intercourse. And it explained it in such graphic detail for a kid's encyclopedia, exactly what sex was. And I think I walked around in a daze for 3 days where I couldn't believe that that's what sex, I couldn't believe that actually happened. I knew girls.
That is a lot of detail and information for a 4th grader to take.
Oh, yeah. They were talking about semen and about all this stuff. And I was just and explaining what semen is and what it looked like. And I was just totally stunned by this as a 4th grader. And I didn't
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Did you ever see Singles, the movie Singles?
I don't think so. No.
Oh my God! There's a scene where one of the characters, when he's young, his mom takes him to the doctor to learn about sex, and the doctor has a very heavy Bostonian accent, and so he goes back and tells all his friends that what comes out is spam. So you at least had the luck of knowing right away how it was spelled.
Right.
And what the
But I was stunned by this. And then
I can imagine.
And then, I would say within a year or so, I would go to my friend's house, this kid Tony that lived down the block, and his father collected Playboy and all those magazines, and he used to grab them and show me, not the father, the kid Tony that we hung out with used to grab the magazines and show us them, and then I started seeing actually what it looked like and all that, but it was kind of stunning.
So how did that work together? Like you had this technical knowledge in your head, and then you finally saw a bit of practical application. Did it like all click right away as soon as you saw the picture?
Yeah, well, I knew that anatomy was different between a boy and a girl. Growing up, when I was a real little kid, I had a sister, and we used to change in the same room. I'm talking when we were like toddlers, so I knew the parts were different. But until I read that encyclopedia thing, I didn't know how they connected, and you make a baby and the sex and all that. And then when I saw the Playboy and the penthouse, then it dawned on me.
I think you're kind of lucky that way, because fourth grade was about the same time I was asked if I was a virgin. So the rest of us were out here fumbling around, showing each other our pee-pees because we wanted to know what was going on. And you got the full-on expose in the encyclopedia.
But I can also remember as like a third grader getting an erection for no reason, like in school. It would just have a mind of its own. And me and a couple of the other guys in the class talking about it, how it just...
That starts that early? Like
oh, yeah. And for no reason. You're not even like aroused. You don't know what sex is. And it would just, on its own, just get hard. And then if you were...
That explains a lot.
Yeah, and if
I'm
you were
learning these things now, and I'm almost 45.
Yeah, and if you were called up to the blackboard and you had to, it was like a tent in your pants. You had to kind of, adjust it before you...
It's the pleats. The
yeah.
pleats in the pants.
But this would just come on, and I remember talking to like a few guy friends in class, like, that we would ask, does your privates get hard? And, yeah, mine too. What do you think that... We didn't know what caused it or what the purpose of it was. We just knew that something strange.
I'm not sure if I would have noticed that. Like, let's say I was your classmate and I saw you stand up with an erection. I'm not sure I would have had any clue as to what.
Well, maybe not in third grade, but by high school when it happens.
Well, yeah. I guess I would have. Yeah.
So did you ever see porn or movies as a youngster by accident at a friend's house, or maybe they... Remember how you used to label your VHS tapes like Miami Vice?
Yeah.
And it was really a porn?
Fifth grade. Yep.
You did?
We found my friend's dad and stepmom had a tape in their closet, and when they were gone one day, she pulled it out and put it on.
A tape, and it had the whole plot and everything, like the milkman.
Oh God, I can't even remember the plot, but I sure do remember the late '70s era super bushes that everybody had on.
I don't think I saw a porn until high school, like a movie, an actual, because there was no internet, obviously. And I think one of my high school friends had videotapes labeled like, Joey's 8th birthday, and it was really porn,
Oh Jesus, that's a I think theirs was clearly labeled like super 70s or something like that. And it was something. I mean, I'm telling you, I saw this porn. Maybe it was more like 8th grade. No, 5th grade. I saw this porn movie, and because of the era in which it was filmed, these people with, like I'm saying, huge muffs, I still hadn't seen a penis.
And you probably couldn't see it with all that hair on it.
No, exactly. Like it was like they had these huge dark spots on their crotches with one little light spot in the middle, and that was all you could see. So I still had no idea what it looked like.
Well, I don't think the shaving craze started till the 90s.
Yeah. Well, and that porn was the only porn I saw until I was old enough to see it myself, like to buy a Playboy or to rent a video. So 18.
Well, before I actually saw the porn, I think I was a senior. We had cable TV from the early 80s because we liked MTV, and there were certain premium channels that were blacked out, like Playboy Channel. And when you passed a channel, it was all scrambled. But if you sat and watched it enough, occasionally between the scrambled lines, you'd see a 10-second titty, or you would see something really quick. But my mom used to...
Wait. How long were you willing to sit in front of the TV and watch those squiggly lines for the chance of catching a half-second titty?
It's the reason I wear glasses now.
Your mother was probably like, Charlie, you've been watching that static for 8 hours.
No, you would see like a nip. But here's the more pathetic thing. My mom used to go to work at work nights at a bakery or supermarket, and my dad used to... Back in the day, the remotes for the cable weren't wireless. You had a remote with a dial on it and a wire going to.
Had one of those?
Yeah, it was a remote with a dial on it that had a wire that went to the cable box. And we figured out that if you put the dial in between channels and then wedge like a butter knife or something underneath, you could get channels that you weren't supposed to get. So my dad used to tinker with the thing and watch the Playboy channel while my mom was at work.
How did you figure this out?
Because
Who stuck a butter knife into the channel?
Well, that was the
remote control.
That was the tool of choice in our house. We always used to. But I think MTV was free with a cable subscription. But they used to show a Saturday night concert, and they used to black it out unless you paid for it. And we figured out by putting the dial halfway between channels and wedging something under there like a butter knife, you would get it in. And then that translated to my dad watching the Playboy channel that way.
Wow, everybody had their hats.
Yeah, exactly. But I wasn't a big fan, like, when I was a teenager. I didn't really have an interest in, like, the porn or anything like that until even as an adult, I never had a big fetish with porn or anything like that. But it's curiosity when you're a kid. It's more curiosity than sexual arousement or fetishes or anything like that.
Yeah, it's curiosity and also, like, shock and awe.
Yeah, my mom also had a book. Now, I think it was more for medical reasons, and I looked it up. Amazon's still selling this book. It came out in 1977. It was by a gynecologist, a man. It's called It's Your Body. And
I've heard of that book.
Yeah, and in this book, it not only talked about women's health problems and issues, but sexuality, and it had illustrations of different sex positions and stuff, and my mother left it. I don't know where she left it, but we came across it as kids, and we started thumbing through that shit, and that's where I saw, like, sexual positions other than missionary, like all different positions, like sideways and upside down and backwards and up. And that shocked me more than those illustrations were very graphic.
But God, I never saw any of that, Charlie. I had no idea. None. Right. Up until, I can't, it was at least in high school when I learned that there was anything more than like kind of laying next to each other or on top of each other. Like I had no idea how the mechanics of it worked or what it looked. It was, you were lucky, I think.
Now your sister is Your sister is younger than you?
Yeah.
Did your parents, after not telling you about sex, did they talk to her about it?
They had to have, because it is my recollection that my sister was on birth control in high school.
So why did they fail you in a way and then help her out? Like, explain to her.
Charlie, that's a long and interesting question, and I'd probably be needing to lie down on the couch to answer it. But basically, I think that...
You were the firstborn, trial and error kind of thing?
The fist was a little tighter with me, and my sister had it much better than me. Let's just put it that way.
Right. As far
when I broke through those barriers, I destroyed them because her life was completely different than mine.
I don't think my sister even got the talk. I don't think any of us ever got sat down and actually had an official talk. But you know what the sad part, Jen, is that my school, we had health class, and they didn't get too detailed about intercourse and stuff in health class, but they did offer a night where they had a movie for dads and their sons to come one night and moms and daughters another night, where they basically explained everything in this movie with a doctor and everything present, a lecture, everything, and my dad wouldn't go with me.
See, in 5th grade, we had one of those deals where I had to get a permission slip signed from my parents that they were going to be having the sex education talk in 5th grade.
Right.
And the day that they had this at my school was the same day. Once a month, I left and went to another school for a gifted program and then came back. That was the day they had the sex talk.
Okay,
and I walked in at the very end of it when the teacher was holding up a tampon in her hand. They had separated the boys and the girls, and she's holding up a tampon, and everybody's like holding their breath because, oh my God, she's holding up a tampon. What is that?
Right.
And that's it. That's it. And then I got a little book distributed by Always Maxi Pads that talked about menstruation, but nothing about the sex.
Did you,
and that was it.
When you first got you first got your cycle, did you know what was going on? Will you explain that before it happened?
No.
No?
But I did know. I knew about it because some of my friends had already had it. So at least when I saw it, I didn't freak out. But I called my mom. She yelled at me.
What?
It was like a Carrie moment. Like, you got your blood, the dogs will come and sniff it. It was so ridiculous. My friend, the first time I used a maxi pad, I put it sticky side up. I had no idea.
You're sticky.
No idea. My friend had to I learned
You're sealing yourself shut with the sticky side.
Jesus, yeah. And I wasn't trimming anything back then, so it was that's straight up.
You gave yourself a Brazilian.
Exactly. And it was horrible.
See, I can't even imagine. Like, I thought, like, getting an erection and not knowing what it was not traumatic, but like, holy shit, what's going on? I can't even imagine having a menstrual cycle and not knowing about it, or not having, like, being forewarned or by, like, an adult.
And also in an atmosphere where I was so ashamed to even ask that I couldn't even talk to my mom directly about it. Like, when I was in high school, I'll never forget on one Saturday a month, my parents would go to the BX on base and get all our groceries for the month, all the big stuff. And they would come home and they would take whatever feminine products had been purchased would be anonymously placed on the dining room table. And then my sister and I, like ninjas, would sneak in and grab our products and run and get them under the sink in the bathroom. We never talked about that stuff.
Were they wrapped in brown paper?
No, it wasn't that bad. But like the Always maxi pads were in this conspicuous pink and purple plastic bag, and it would just be sitting on the dining room table like a beacon.
Well, let me ask you something. Would you have been comfortable talking to your parents about it if they were willing?
I don't know. Probably not. The whole thing mortified me. I mean, like, I remember my dad and I went to see Top Gun in the movie theater. I don't remember what year that was, but that scene where Maverick and Charlie are making out, and it's all in silhouette, and she like licks his neck. I wanted to die. I wanted to die. So I'm sure I would have been like, "Oh God, Mom, I don't want to talk about this," but. If they would have made me sit there and listen, I'm sure I would have picked some of it up.
Well, do you want to?
Had some idea.
Do you want to talk about wanting to die? My first real girlfriend was after high school. I was 19 and she was 17. Okay, we were both virgins, so we were both each other's first, which is kind of good in a way because you find your way. You both don't know what the hell you're doing, right? So we waited about a year before we actually had sex. But after we started having sex, we felt, other than condoms, she should go on the birth control pill, right? So she goes on the pill, and she kept him in her purse, and she had a little niece that was like 3 years old. And one day, the whole family was over. It was like a holiday. Christmas, I don't know, with aunts, uncles, grandparents. The little girl went into my girlfriend's purse, grabbed the birth control, and yelled at the top of her lungs, "Grandma, can I have some candy?" And the whole...
You're full of it. That's like a scene from a John Hughes movie
that
or something
happened
like that.
on my life. That happened.
No.
Yes, the little girl grabbed,
What did you do?
and the whole family looked and realized it was birth control. My face must have been like a beet. So
Did someone grab a shotgun?
No, my girlfriend ran and grabbed the pills and ran, and it was so awkward after that I didn't say a word the rest of the night.
See, if you would have known then what you know now, you could have just looked around the room and said, "She gets bad cramps," or "She has acne."
Or I could have said, "That's right, bitches."
Oh, yes, that's true too. That is also highly likely.
But I guess our parents knew we were having sex. I would think.
I mean, how did she get them? Was she savvy enough to know she could go to Planned Parenthood or the county health department?
I think she just went to her. I think by then she had turned 18, so she didn't have to go through her parents. She just went to the doctor and went to the pharmacy. But that was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. I still talk about. And what's funny is that the little girl, who was 3 at the time, is like 30 now, and I'm friends with my ex-girlfriend on Facebook and the niece. But I never bring it up because it would be like, you're too young to remember this. But when you were 3, you went in
That's the kind of story that you tell at a rehearsal dinner. That's an awesome story.
But that was one of the most traumatic moments of my life when that little girl grabbed those pills out of the purse. So what did you hear about sex growing up from friends and stuff that when you actually had sex, it wasn't true? It was a myth. Let's myth bust. Like, you heard these things, kids talk.
Really, it's weird, Charlie. I don't think I ever heard like the stories I would hear about sex from other people were like, "Oh, did you hear about so and so? She had sex with so and so in the back of his car." Right. I mean, that's it. No, I don't remember ever actually talking about any of the particulars, even when, like my best friend was like, I was a senior, I think, and she was a junior, and she's like, me and my boyfriend have decided to go all the way, blah, 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 blah. We didn't talk about the mechanics.
Right. Okay.
We just, afterwards it was like, how was it? Or not even how was it? I mean, oh my God, or what's going on? She's like, oh, it's fun. We didn't really talk about it.
Nowadays everything's told in detail.
Yeah.
So when you finally did have it, you kind of knew what was going on because you've seen it in the on a movie. But was it different than you experiencing it?
Because you see it in the movies and it's all like,
right.
Ooh, the woman is draped there artfully and beautifully, and in real life it's your head. It's this sound, bonk, 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 and that's your head hitting the headboard on the hotel bed during spring break. I mean, it was nothing like what I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, same here. My first time was with that girl I described, and we used to go downstairs in her house. She had like a ranch house, and she had like a partially finished basement where we used to go down and watch TV and sports and stuff. And we used to go down there while her parents were home and go down there and watch TV and fool around. And then it led to actually having sex. And her parents were right upstairs, but they never came downstairs. And it was Palm Sunday, 1991.
Oh, you're going to hell.
Yeah, my first time having sex was on Palm Sunday.
Jesus died for your sins, Charlie.
That's right.
Look what you caused.
That's every time Palm Sunday comes, I'm like, that's right, bitches, it's Palm Sunday. But yeah, I'm glad that's my only thing I'm thankful for is that the first time I had sex, that was their first time too. So it's kind of like an experimentation together kind of thing. I thought that was really cool,
Yeah. That is a good
I don't know how I would have been with like experienced girl and me not knowing what to do, and it would have been kind of awkward.
Charlie, I'm sure it would have been fine.
No, I think, but
the end results would have been just fine.
No, I know, but I'm just saying from a being comfortable standpoint, it was nice knowing.
At that age, you're not comfortable. The first time, you're not comfortable no matter what.
Right.
I mean, I wasn't comfortable with it until I was probably in my 30s.
30s. Well, in your 20s, you're still kind of like...
Yeah.
It's just kind of sex to have sex in a lot of ways in your 20s, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Now, what strategy will you have with your daughter when she gets old enough? Is it going to be totally different from where your mom and dad were?
Yeah.
You're going to be comfortable talking to her about all this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I'm talking about anything graphic, but I just try to talk about things in the everyday course of life. So if she asks me a question like, where's the baby come from? I'm like, well, the mommy has the egg and the daddy has the sperm, and then they get together and the baby grows inside the mommy. She doesn't ask for those details like, what do you mean they get together? But
right. She doesn't say, what is a sperm, or where does that,
yeah,
where is that from?
But we just talk about it. I don't make a big deal out of it. It's just a normal part of life. We don't use cutesy little names for our body parts, so there's no hoo-hoo or fanny. We've got penis, vagina.
What were the nicknames for the parts when you were growing up in your house?
I think my mom, the generic term was your privates or your rear end.
I don't know what the terms for penis and vagina were growing up. I don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't think
I maybe blocked that out. It was probably such a bad nickname. I probably blocked it out.
No, I don't think we had a nickname at all. I think it was all just generalized as privates, like it was just this, in my mind, it was just this like Bermuda triangle spot down there that was just a blur. You had no idea what was down there. It was just your private.
Things just disappeared.
Don't touch it.
Bermuda triangle.
Don't, and I hesitate to use the word triangle.
No, I know what you mean.
No idea what
like a mystery. It's like a mystery.
It could have been a parallelogram for all I knew. I just had no clue.
Could have been a rhombus.
So exactly. I could have. So the first time I ever got a Brazilian wax, which was in my 30s in Atlanta, I learned that women grew hair around their butts.
Okay.
I mean, that's sad, isn't it? When I was pregnant, I had her when I was 39 years old. So between 38 and 39, when I was pregnant, I learned that fallopian tubes are actually about the size of a fishing line.
Oh, really?
Did you know that?
No, that I didn't know.
Me neither. The models that they make it look like, you think you've got two egg-sized ovaries, one on each hip.
Well, I figured it would look like a tube, like almost like a valve for a heart or something like that, like a tube like that. Yeah.
No, it's tiny, tiny.
See, I wouldn't have known that.
The size of a fishing line. That's really sad.
For all you listening out there, see, the listeners are learning something today. In case you didn't know, folks.
Yeah.
The
more you know. Doo, doo, doo.
So, what do you think? Like, do you think if your parents had talked to you about it, or you would have had some authority figure explain all this to you, do you think what would have been different in life?
I think it's more. It would have been more. I didn't necessarily need anyone to sit down and give me the talk, but I needed an open line of communication with someone so that I could ask. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah.
If someone would have talked to me about it, at least I would have had a head start, like some idea of what was going on. If I would have been able to go and ask questions, that would have just changed my life.
Yeah, and
because instead of being shocked, I could have, could have known.
Well, now kids can just go online and look up, even from a medical standpoint. I'm not talking about porn. That's a whole other thing. But we didn't have that option other than the encyclopedia or a dictionary. We didn't have that information at our fingertips like they do now.
No. Yeah, exactly. Like you stumbled onto it in an encyclopedia.
Right.
I had a friend's kid. A friend whose kid, he was like 7 or 8 at the time. He and his friends were on their tablet and decided to type in because it was so funny, world's biggest butt.
Oh no.
And you can imagine what came up. And so she walks, they're sitting there shocked. She sees the shocked looks on their faces and she walks over and there's a porn playing and she's like, oh my God, what happened? She freaks out. She's punishing everybody. And then the story comes out and they're like, we had no idea. We were just trying to type. We wanted to see a picture of the world's biggest butt, and it just meant the butt. Now, clothes.
Are you kind of glad that we grew up in a time of, I don't want to say innocence, but where everything wasn't out in the open? Would you want to know about sex as a 6-year-old now, where you can go online and stumble across something, or we were kind of protected in a way? Do you think that's better?
Yeah, I think that I think it's a happy medium.
Right.
You need to be protected a little bit more, but somebody's got to explain it to you. And not even just the physical sex part, but just the whole relationship dynamic. Like when the whole thing, like when you get your period or start hitting puberty, you're going to actually suddenly want to touch these other parts on this other person that you've never seen before. You don't know what it looks like, but for some reason you just
and you're drawn to it.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I didn't even know that.
Well, I think parents, and I talked about this in the introduction before the phone call. I think it's important too, not only to talk about the dynamics of sex and the actual, intercourse and anatomy and all that, but relationships in general, about dealing with breakups and different stuff like that. I mean, that knowledge I wish I had. My dad used to say when I used to go out with a girl a couple of times and then we wouldn't see each other more. There's plenty of fish in the sea. What are you getting upset for? That was the relationship advice.
Yeah, I had none.
Girls are like a bus. One leaves and the next one comes along in 5 minutes. That's what he used to say. That was relationship advice by Jim McMahon.
See, mine was I was finally allowed to quote unquote date when I turned 16, and because I wasn't allowed to ride in the car with another teenager driving until I had my own driver's license.
Right.
See, these are the weird medieval rules my parents came up with, and so my first real date was when I was 16, and this guy, my dad demands that this guy walk into my house. We're just going over to another friend's house to watch a movie. Like, we're not even going out, and he says to him, they have some kind of very short back and forth conversation. And another moment I'll never forget. He says, George, you have a good time tonight, but if you lay one hand on my daughter, I'll rip your face right off. I didn't have another date, Charlie. I had to strong arm my friend's brothers to take me to homecoming. That by the time we got back to school on Monday, that story had mutated into my dad had a shotgun and threatened him with murder. I never had another date.
No, I don't.
It was awful.
And you didn't have any brothers or any? You just had your sister, right?
Yeah, and she dated that guy's little brother.
Yeah, you were like the experiment. They didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Once they got past you, they're like, all right, we can loosen this rule. We can talk about this. We can do that.
Oh, my God, they threw him out the window. It was like they just were like, whatever, Julia, do whatever you want,
Yeah, I don't think
Julia.
the rules changed. We were all 2 years apart, my sister being the oldest. I don't think any of us got any better of a talk about sex or relationship advice or anything. I think we were all pretty much on our own.
I really don't know what went on between my mother and my sister, but, I know that my sister knew more about sex when she was in high school than I did when I was in high school.
How many years difference were you guys?
Almost 4.
All right,
So I graduated from high school and she started 9th grade the year after. We were never.
So it wasn't like a different era or decade or anything. It was 4 years is okay. It's 4 years, but it's not like she was 10 years younger.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was almost like my parents. My mother always just thought I was the spawn of Satan is what it was. And she just expected at any moment, if she loosened her grip on me, that I would go crazy. And with my sister, by the time she got to my sister, she realized that, that's not exactly going to happen. Actually, the opposite is going to happen because she and I used to fight like cats and dogs. She never fought with my sister, not very much anyway.
Well, the statistics show that when parents do actually sit down and talk to their children about sex, they're less likely to just go out and have random sex, that they'll take it more seriously. And, statistics show that. So it's just you have to get past that initial awkwardness or feeling uncomfortable and do it. I don't have any kids, so I'm not going to, be able to do that. But I think
maybe you can come over and give Celine the talk when it's time.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, like relationships, like not only explaining about the sex, but this is what you should be prepared for if when you have sex with your boyfriend for the first time in high school or your girlfriend or whoever, that if he or she tells other people, the rumors are going to get spread around. You know what I mean? Like,
or if he rolls over and goes to sleep and doesn't cuddle. Just kidding.
Oh, nobody cared. Nobody was cuddling in
I
high
know,
school
I'm
because
kidding
you were in
around.
the backs of cars or in the woods or, That I do remember when the stories would go around about, certain couples or whatever that were having regular sexual relations. Like, we were in awe of the couples who were like, they'd go over to Susie's house. They go to Susie's house every day, and Susie has the basement downstairs all to herself, and it's like an apartment. And we'd all be like, ooh.
It was like an enchanted.
Yeah, they were like the high class people. Everybody else was like in the gym, behind the bleachers.
Yeah, well, I was lucky because, like, the first girl, I was with, she had that basement. And then within a year, I moved out on my own and had my own place. So I never really had to go in cars and do all that crazy stuff.
That's one thing I don't regret about not doing that kind of stuff in high school, because I never had to worry about that crap. You didn't have to worry about birth control. You and your girlfriend made the decision she's going to go on it, and she went and got it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm glad I grew up in the time I did, but I just wish that, I had a little bit more, not even so much knowledge, because I got the knowledge through reading and different stuff, but just guidance.
Yeah, guidance. That's the perfect word for it. I mean, thank the good Lord we didn't have social media when we were growing up.
No,
Can you imagine?
No, I'm glad we didn't. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to grow up.
What terrible pressure that is.
No, I wouldn't want to have grown up when my parents did, like where you barely had a TV and, but I wouldn't want to grow up now with over technology. I think we had the right blend of, we had our video games, we had a TV, we had cable, we had a radio. That was enough for me.
Yeah, like if you wanted to sneak somewhere to talk to your boyfriend or girlfriend, it was still some corner of your house.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You couldn't go out and like be at the mall and just talk to somebody like you can with a cell phone.
Yeah. Although that was an embarrassing part of growing up. When you wanted to talk to a girl, we had one telephone in the house hanging on the kitchen wall. And when you wanted to call a girl when you were like 15, the whole family heard the whole conversation. Because you're sitting in the central part of the house on a corded telephone.
Yeah.
And there was no place to sneak and talk and It was, we were basically on a stage. It was like a one-man Broadway show on the phone.
My husband tells the story. It makes me laugh. He was the oldest of 3 brothers, and he tells the story of like in middle school, some girl that he had this huge crush on called his house, and like you said, one telephone in the middle of the living room. His little brother picks it up, and this girl asks for Jeff, and he holds the phone out from his face and yells, "Hey, underpants, the phone's for you." He said he was so embarrassed.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't know how he even got words out in the conversation with that girl on the phone.
And you look back now and it's so silly. Underpants,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But
Hey,
at the time,
underpants.
you're mortified.
Yeah. Yep, he wanted to die.
Well, Jen, it's been even more entertaining than I anticipated. I really appreciate you coming on.
No problem.
Anything else to add?
No. I'm going to have to go and, stick my head. I don't know what I'm going to do when we hang up. Pray to God that Celine didn't hear me talking and doesn't start asking questions.
Yeah, Mommy, what were you saying about?
She's been asking, Mommy, I want a baby sister or baby brother.
Yeah, I'll get right on it.
Yeah, it's not happening.
Well, as always, you're a listener favorite. I really appreciate you spending some time with us today. And
I love doing it. It's fun.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back very soon.
Yes.
All right, thanks.
So, because my 8th time, remember, you said a watch.
That's right. Well,
back.
Thanks for coming on.
No worries.
All right, bye.
Bye.
The always fun Jen. I really appreciate her coming on. I know you guys probably do as well. Where are we located? We're found on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Radio Public, Radio.com, Stitcher, Castbox, YouTube, Deezer, Pocket Casts, Breaker, Overcast. Or you can just say to your Amazon Echo device, Alexa, play the podcast, A Bunch of Malarkey. If you want to get in touch with the show, we're on Twitter at Malarkey Pod Show. You can email me at abunchofmalarkeypodshow@gmail.com. You want to call our studio line, leave a voicemail, 706-406-8212. You want to become a patron of the show? Go to patreon.com/abunchofmalarkey. $1 a month, $2 a month, $3 a month. If you're a big shot and want to donate more, you can. You could do it one time or a monthly sponsoring of the show. So patreon.com/abunchofmalarkey. Be sure to vote for the Mutant of the Week. Poll goes up on Monday, ends on Saturday. Who do we got this week? We got the Dollar Tree Dickhead versus My Kentucky Hole. I like that one, My Kentucky Hole. If you miss me during the week, go over to Charlie's 80s Attic on TuneIn and iHeartRadio. It's an 80s radio station where I am the DJ. You can hear me live all week. That's Charlie's 80s Attic on iHeartRadio and TuneIn Radio. Or you can head over to charlies80sattic.com and stream from there. I think I covered all the bases. So, folks, if you are sitting around thinking about how the hell am I going to teach my kid the birds and the bees, or you're reminiscing about maybe the first time you discovered the birds and the bees, you still have to beware, because it's a shit show out there. Thanks so much for tuning in. This has been A Bunch of Malarkey. Have a great week. Take care of each other. Be safe. And I'll catch you next week.